the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Friday, June the 4th in the year 2021. And no matter if you're listening to the podcast on the Odyssey app or Apple Podcasts or any of the numerous ways you can catch the audio version of the show, or if you're watching via youtube.com/Locked On Buckeyes, I want to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes a part of your day. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter as well at Locked On Buckeye. Lined up for today in segment 2, we're going to talk about a couple Buckeyes that are nominated for the College Football Hall of Fame. Segment 3, a little something that Chris Olave did via action earlier this year that reminds me about something that we'll see in the fall. But before we get to any of that, I want to remind you to make sure you check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast, because there's simply no better place to get all the news on the Big Ten Conference than with Big Ten Ben Stevens and the Locked On Big Ten podcast. Follow the Locked On Big Ten podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your fine podcast. With the dead period being over for recruiting, and recruits, as we have seen all throughout this week, starting on Tuesday, have been at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and they've actually been all around the country, from Washington to California to New York, down to Florida, and everywhere in between. There have been recruits at these schools, on campuses, in front of coaches, looking to spark something and get a little eye and, hey, coach, I don't have an offer from you just yet, but here's what I can do via this workout in a camp. Hey, is an offer going to come or is it not going to come? And as we have seen, there are a couple individuals that won the class of 2023, won the class of 2022. They did not receive an offer from Ohio State. One recently committed to Florida. The other recruited and committed to Florida State. This weekend, though, it is a weekend that has been highly anticipated for a few months now, Buckeye Bash 2.0. Buckeye Bash 2.0 is simply a day and a weekend, a little laid-back atmosphere for be a little Buckeye hangout. Recruits are coming in, a little barbecue action as well. It's more of a way for guys that have already committed to come in and have a weekend with guys that have not committed yet, and really just have what I call a kickback, if you know what I'm talking about, kickback-wise. It's kind of a kickback style of, hey, I understand Urban Meyer did the Friday Night Lights in front of fans at Ohio Stadium where recruits could come in and work out in front of the fans under the lights in the horseshoe. And it's really a fun, enjoyable, great way to recruit athletes to come to Ohio Stadium. But the Buckeye Bash is a little bit different. There will be no working out going on. There will be no fans there. There might be in the shoe just for a tour of but that's about it. It won't be, we're going to be in the horseshoe the entire time, talking about the history and working out a little bit. Nothing like that. You're going to get athletes this weekend coming to Columbus. Some being there for their first time, meeting the coaches for the very first time. Some have already committed. Some have not. It's a mixture of those that have committed, high-talented, high-caliber five-star recruits, some that have not committed, and they're just simply there to get a taste of Ohio State, see what the recruiting is like. Coaches will be there. It's a great recruiting tool. Some names that'll be there at the Buckeye Bash 2.0 this weekend. Now, the list that I have, things could have been a little bit altered, but these are just some of the names that I believe will be there this weekend. And if they've committed, I will let you know. If they have not committed, I will let you know that as well. Quinn Ewers committed, pro-style quarterback out of South Lake Carroll. high school in the state of Texas quarterback. If you have not watched that young man throw the football, get on the social media, get on the YouTube, search Quinn Ewers. You will be highly, highly impressed. Jaheim Singletary, a five-star recruit who is a cornerback. He is committed. He will be there as well. CJ Hicks, outside linebacker out of Archbishop Alter in Ohio. He will be there as well. He is also committed. Now, here's one that is not committed. Omari Aber, strong side defensive end out of Texas. He's a 4-star recruit. Another one that's not committed, Zion Branch. He's a safety. Now, like I said, some of these may be a little bit altered based off the list that I have. He's out of Bishop Gorman, of the same school, might I add you, that Tathan Martell. Yes, we're using government names right now. The same school that Tathan Martell went to as well. Jair Brown, cornerback, he will be there. And just a few other, just so many athletes that will be there at this time, really enjoying Ohio State and getting to know what Ohio State is more like when you're right there on campus. We have seen CJ Hicks and Quinn Ewers be very, very, what's the proper word? Assistant or not beneficial. That's the word, not assistant, but they have been very, very beneficial. And beneficials to the point that they're going to be used to recruit players just like the coaches will be, the coordinators will be. But it's a nice little added bonus when they can recruit via the social media. Think about it. Think about 20 years ago. If somebody had a Buckeye Bash like this, there was no social media, no Twitter, no Instagram, no nothing. You may have known about these guys via playing against them in your high school season, or you may have heard about them just based off the paper and reading things like that or something off the radio. But there was nothing like this that went on back in the early 2000s. I'm talking about 2000, 2001, 2002. Now, you know a lot of the guys, but these guys, Quinn Ewers, CJ Hicks, among so many others that are going to be very instrumental and beneficial, that's the word, sticking with it, beneficial to allowing this to happen and being another recruiter. It's amazing what social media can do, and I'm really excited to see how Buckeye Bash 2.0 will go. This is also a big weekend, a phenomenal weekend. We're going to get a lot of recruits coming through Columbus, a lot of them. What will the outcome be? We'll have to find out. Stick around Monday next week to figure out what actually took place, the good, the bad, and the ugly during Buckeye Bash 2.0. We're going to step away very, very quickly. When we come back, we'll talk about not just one, but two Buckeyes that are on the ballot that are nominated to potentially be in the College Football Hall of Fame. But first, check this out. You have heard me talk quite a bit about Built Bar, but did you know that Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors plus the occasional limited time flavor as well? Some of their flavors are coconut, and then also coconut almond, then cherry, then raspberry, then mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, double chocolate, and even salted caramel. And even for those of you that are watching via youtube.com/LockedOnBuckeyes, you can see it right there in the camera, grasshopper cookie. The coconut was a limited flavor when it first came out. When I first tasted that, I said, ooh, I like this, the grasshopper cookie. That, I will say, is an acquired taste. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're also healthy as well. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, and they're also great for the keto diet. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off your next order. Once again, go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15, and you will get 15% off your next order at BuiltBar.com. And as we roll on here on this Friday, Feel Good Friday edition of Locked on Buckeyes, I want to remind you to utilize the review section, the 5-star review section via Apple Podcast to help the show grow. Listeners have done a phenomenal job, and I want to thank you so much for listening, downloading, the retweets, the likes, sharing with your family, your friends, and maybe even that foe, that individual that you don't like, but you know he loves the Buckeyes just like you do, letting so many people know about the podcast. And the way they can do it without even using word of mouth, it's hand typing, then hitting send a 5-star, count 'em, 5-star review via Apple Podcasts. If you're not an Apple user, but you know somebody that is, take their phone politely. Don't steal out their hand, but say, hey, give me that. I got to do something very quickly. I can't do it on my Android. Go to the Apple Podcast app. You'll find it. Go to the Locked On Buckeyes. If they're not subscribed, subscribe to them. Type in 5 stars, hit the 5-star button, hit your review, and then hit send. Greatly. Your boy will greatly appreciate it. Count them 1, but 2. 2 potential Buckeyes that can be college football Hall of Famers when the ballots are handed in. I will let you know via some research, the ballots, just go jump right to it. The ballots need to be submitted by June 25th. That is a Friday. That is also your boy's birthday. That is, count them, 3 Fridays from now. That is my birthday. I don't know what I'm doing on my birthday. It is a Friday. I might not work. I might work. I'm normally a person that works on my birthday, but we'll see how things go. Your boy's going to be 33. We're going to see exactly what your boy has planned to enjoy that special day. Speaking of a special day, it will be a special day if not only James Laurinaitis, former linebacker at Ohio State, but also Mike Doss, former 3-time, got to count him, 3-time All-American at The Ohio State University as well. Had a interception in the national championship game against the 0-2 Miami Hurricanes that literally ended, I got to say it again, ended that run that they had from the early 80s when they hired Howard Schnellenberger to Butch Davis and Jimmy Johnson. And I know I missed a coach after Schnellenberger, but then they hired Larry Coker. He had success early, kind of off of Butch Davis' recruits. Larry Coker that lost there couldn't sustain what the previous 4 coaches had done at the University of Miami. Mike Doss, James Laurinaitis. Not only will they be potentially being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, but there also were some other individuals that are in there. Now the ballot, this is the 2022 ballot. It was announced earlier this week, and they were on the list along with more than 200 other players and coaches across all divisions. This is not just Division I. This is across all divisions of the college football. The duo was also on last year's ballot as well. Ohio State currently has 27 former players that are Hall of Famers, and then also 6 coaches that are in the Hall of Fame as well. Some accolades and kind of something that they're looking for when they're picking or trying to decide who can be a college football Hall of Famer, who will be a Hall of Famer. A few things. I think this is very, very interesting because one detail is different than the pro ranks. I believe it's for baseball as well. I know for to get into Canton for the football or to get into the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame, you have to be removed and retired from the game. Retired as a player, not as a coach. You could be active as a coach and get inducted as a broadcaster, the Kurt Gowdy Award, and get inducted as well. But as a player, you have to be done playing the college football. Has to be 10 years after your collegiate playing years are done for the football and the basketball professional ranks. You have to be 5 years out. Now, Kobe Bryant was an exception with his unexpected death in Calabasas, California via the helicopter crash. He did get inducted right away. No waiting, no reason to wait. He's going to get in anyway. Since he's no longer with us, unfortunately, we're going to put him in right away. But you have to be 10 years removed from playing the college football to potentially be on the ballot. And also another thing, you have to be done playing professionally. So let's say you're out of college football for 10 years, but you're still playing professionally. You can't be on the ballot to go into the College Football Hall of Fame. Also, they do take in your character and how you are received after your playing days are over. Kind of interesting way to view this and to dive into what it takes to get in there. You got to have the accolades. You got to have the stats. You got to be somebody that's remembered for great play in college football, not just one season, but over a long period of time. But also, they want outstanding citizens in this Hall of Fame. We see athletes like Terrell Owens, who is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He is a Hall of Fame talent. He is a Hall of Famer. But those writers, They're saying no. Baseball, you got guys like Barry Bonds, a guy like Mark McGwire, a guy like Sammy Sosa. Some say they should be in the Hall of Fame. Some say Barry Bonds is the best of all time in baseball. I don't get into those discussions or arguments, but they're not in, and we know why. Also, there was another one with Roger Clemens. Should he get in? Yes. Why isn't he? Steroids. There was another one that was just on the tip of my tongue, but he is not in either. And there's going to find reasons to not put you in. But college football, that's in their criteria. Some of the others, they're just unwritten rules. Some of the accolades that Mike Doss had, and I'll get to James Laurinaitis' accolades as well. Mike Doss, a 3-time All-American. He was a defensive MVP during the national championship game, the 03 Fiesta Bowl 02 season. Ohio State, I believe, went 14-0, ending, like I mentioned, that phenomenal run that the Miami Hurricanes were on for nearly 2 decades. He was a 2002 Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time tackle leader. And this is an all-time grouping here that I love. He is first amongst DBs at Ohio State for all-time tackles with 331 tackles during his career that lasted from 1999 until 2002. James Laurinaitis played his football from 05 until 08. A few years after Mike Doss was done, Mike Doss went on to the NFL, had injuries, which really messed up his career in the NFL because he was playing for the Indianapolis Colts, and there were some flashes of some really good play until that young man got hurt. James Laurinaitis, laundry list of things that he did while in college. 2-time captain at Ohio State, 06 Nagurski Award winner, 07 Buckeyes Award winner, 2-time national championship game appearances, which is huge. 4 Big Ten titles, conference titles, 2-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, tackle leader, 3 years in a row. And the defense, this is a totality while he was at Ohio State. During his playing career, the defense, while he was there, never ranked lower than 15th in the country. You got Mike Doss, national championship winner. You got James Laurinaitis, 2 appearances in 2 BCS national championship games. Mike Doss, a guy that was phenomenal. If you want to go back and look on the YouTube and look up highlights, I almost said plays and highlights for Mike Doss and James Laurinaitis, I think you'll be surprised and amazed by both of them. Will they get in, be voted in? We got to wait later on this year to find out. But I don't know if they'll get in this year. But I think both of them will eventually be CFB HOFers. You got to step away very, very quickly. When we come back, we will talk about something that Olave did via an action earlier this year that I think is something for a sign of good things to come this fall. But first, check this out. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing. You can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and all your UFC/MMA action. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to betonline.ag on your laptop or mobile device to sign up today. And when you do, make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sports book experts. And as we roll on and continue and wrap up today's Feel Good Friday edition here of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Think back earlier this year, after the national championship game, we are waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And sometimes you kind of assumed Olave would go to the NFL, but Olave decided to stay in college and play football for one more year at the Ohio State University. When the announcement came down, I remember hopping on the Twitter and people going crazy. You know, the GIFs that we utilize when we get hype and we get excited. I know one I use all the time is from I am Desi Banks, I believe, on Instagram. I don't know his Twitter handle. I see all his videos on on the Instagram. Very, very funny, very humorous. A lot of things that take you back, a little nostalgic via the videos that he does put out. But I am Desi Banks as one of them riding in a car, and he's high, just pumping his fist and going like this. If you're watching on the YouTube, seeing the boy get a little animated today. I got to add, I worked out a few hours before hopping on the podcast, and my goodness, maybe it was a couple hours. I feel good. Maybe this is something that should happen before every single podcast episode that is recorded, because waking up, being up for 30, 45 minutes to an hour, then hopping on the recording, and that feeling is nowhere near as good as what I feel right now. Back to Olave. So Olave made a decision to come back to Ohio State. And I know part of the talk of the town at that time, this is probably February at this time, maybe late January, early February. Part of the talk of the town was Fields is gone. Okay, the quarterback probably going to be CJ Stroud. Could be Jack Miller. Could be Kyle McCord, who will be a newcomer who wasn't on the team last year. But who really is going to be the quarterback? We don't know. I remember back then I made a comment, and I'm going to reiterate that comment today, where I said a lot of coming back reminds me of, puts a few things in my mind. Number one, it puts in my mind that he believes he can get better as a college football player and be a better pro prospect. Number two, one thing I thought he could do is he could get stronger, because not just say he looks like a toothpick, but he is a very, 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 very skinny wide receiver. Not Devonta Smith skinny, former Heisman Trophy winner from last year, but he is a skinny individual. Skinnier than really very skinny wide receiver. So I think he's skinny. He can get stronger. He can be a better pro prospect. But then also I made a statement. I'm going to reiterate that today because I think it's very, very true. For what you're going to hear, you've heard all about Ohio State's quarterback. Their quarterback, whoever starts next year, has never thrown a pass in college football. Oh, that brings cause to concern. Oh, that makes me nervous. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to believe when it comes to those guys, because we've never seen them on a college football field before throwing the football. Okay, great. Okay. That's a talking point. Does it make you nervous? Possibly. But let's just be honest now. These guys are at Ohio State. Say whatever you want, but Ohio State, former players, quarterbacks, they're at Ohio State. A former NFL coach who we have seen when Justin Fields first got there his first spring, he was not the quarterback that he was in the fall. Nowhere close. There were major jumps, major strides that were made from the first spring practice to the first game that he started at the Ohio State University. And even Justin Fields had played some football, but nah. It makes a whole lot of sense when you see him early on, at least in the spring practices, and hearing what comes from coaches, why Georgia and Kirby Smart stuck with Jake Fromm instead of moving on to Justin Fields. Now, hindsight's always 20/20, but back in that moment, it made a lot of sense. Chris Olave, I believe, and I still believe this, and I'm just going to I'm going to end this on a good note, a high note. I could have brought a rant that you guys would have loved, or I could have brought a rant that would have been ripping somebody, or it could have been something that's just been about Ohio State, something I saw on the Twitter. No, it's going to bring in some comfort for you for today. I think part of the reason that Chris Olave ended up staying at Ohio State is because he knows whoever is the quarterback at Ohio State this year, he can trust. I'm not going to deny it, go anything away from that. I think if he didn't trust that quarterback, any of them, he wouldn't have come back. I'm not saying he would have transferred. That boy would have gone to the league. I do believe that Olave, his action to come back, speaks volumes. Because if you want to be a better pro prospect, even if you get stronger like you want to do, and like some people would say you need to do, if you don't trust your quarterback, your chances of being a better pro prospect aren't that good. Now, granted, it's not like he's a Sean Wade, where Sean Wade was going from the inside to the outside and he was moving positions. Olave is still going to be on the outside. He could play the X or the Z, either side. Doesn't really matter what receiver. He can play either one, but he's still going to be on the outside, run the same routes, get some of the same corners and defensive backs that he's been against. Still going against some of the same coaches that have tried to scheme against him for quite a long time. All of that's going to be exactly the same. However, I firmly believe that Olave's decision to stay at Ohio State should bring a sigh of relief to Ohio State fans, not just because Olave is still there, but two, that's a great sign without saying anything that I trust the guy that'll be throwing me the ball. And right now, I have no idea who that guy will be. I know it's going to be one of three individuals. But if you're trying to pick three of them, and if you're trying to juggle, or you're trying to pick some things, it's kind of like a hot potato. Like, well, I like this. Not a hot potato. That's a bad analogy. I like this guy, but no, I don't like. No, I like this guy. No, this guy right here. That guy right here. I like him too. But they all bring something different. I don't know which one to pick. But I think Olave. Remember. First thing that came to my mind, and you could check the receipts. I said on the podcast back a few months ago. Olave staying in school says a lot about the quarterback position, and that we, myself, you, others, can trust whoever the signal caller is at the Ohio State University in the fall, the year after that, and even the year after that. Guys, we're done. My pen is down. We are good to go. We're enjoyable. My pen is since fallen on the floor. You guys can always follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. That is J Stevens with a PH07. You can send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Remember, until further notice, the podcast will be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday sequence until further notice. There will be the occasional bonus episode when we're missing a Tuesday and a Thursday, maybe on the weekend, but primarily 3 days a week, the off-season schedule until further notice. But even though that is until further notice, we're going to stick with that schedule down the road this month and probably in July as well. Right now is a great time to go ahead and check out the Locked On Today podcast, because that is the place to get all the sports news you need in under 20 minutes. That is amazing with the Locked On Today podcast. Host Peter Bukowski updates you on the latest news in every major sport with the help of our local experts. Follow the Locked On Today podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your fine podcast.